Yeah.
What you doing, Bubs? Spider webs?
They are abundant
They're
everywhere.
What happened? Did your Switch die? No? Just chilling? Oh, you were cold? You coming in to get warm? I get it. All right, Bubs. Well, hey. We're going to film. We're going to do a little film. And then, no, not yet.
Oh,
Maybe
technically we are.
We kind of technically are.
These
are the pre-take. You want to say hi really quick? You go be famous. Famous on it. No, you got to come over here.
Hey there, Wargamers. Justin the Iron Painter here, and today I've got Erik Tsuge Berg. Did I say correctly? Is that the correct thing? Tsuge? Okay. Yeah. And you guys are tuned in for episode 4 in the TNT Two Nerds Talking podcast. That's what I'm calling it because it sounds cool, and I wanted to be able to put TNT on thumbnails. So this is Erik. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
You've been on the channel before.
Yeah. My name is Erik. What do you want me to say?
I don't know what
I don't know what.
Erik, how'd you come up with your name for CSO? Where's Tsuge come from?
Yeah, so I'm one of the CSO artists, pretty new to the crew. Came up with that name. It's my grandmother's maiden name back in Japan. So I'm part Japanese, and that's where I got it from. And it goes way back. That's an old name that like barely ever gets used. So and there's a whole long story with that we could talk about too. Yeah. So it's going to sound super nerdy and super out of this world.
On a channel with nerd stuff.
Yeah. But Tsuge is, like I said, a very rare name. And it's actually it comes from near Kyoto. Mm-hmm. So Mieiken is the prefecture that exists down there. And it was a line of ninja and samurai that were part of the Tokugawa shogunate. So somewhere down the line, I guess her ancient ancestors were part of that.
Very cool.
And it's not like romanticized like it is now. They were just like basically just like intelligence agents for ancient shogun back in the day. And then times changed and they kind of went their separate ways and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that came from.
That is neat. I wish the guy from DRD works here, Neil's a big buff on like Japanese history. He loves that stuff. That would have been fascinating for him.
I have a book actually. It's on my phone. I'll have to show it to you at some point. But yeah, that's kind of where it comes from. So that's where it came from.
So got Tsuge on today, and much like with the previous episodes, kind of just want to have someone to get on and talk, mostly shining the light on Erik today. And then, if he shows up for other segments, you know who he is, and we can talk about stuff. So he mentioned the history of your name there. Let's go into like your background, early life, if that's okay with you. Because trying to connect maybe who you are and how that might have impacted or got you into what you're doing today with like mini stuff. That would be related, but it doesn't have to be pure minis. So not every connection. If you just want to talk about cool childhood stuff or growing up. So I pretty normal childhood life. Parents are still married. They've been married for like years and years and years. We talked about it on the other video that we did together. Got into painting kind of through doing hobby stuff as a kid. And then with the cars, right? Because the car restoration business that my grandfather owned, and he used that to make a living because he was Port Authority for the city of New York, so basically a cop. Yeah. And he got disabled. He got hurt on the job, and got disability from the city of New York. But then also, it wasn't enough to subsidize his life, so ended up moving down to Jersey from New York City, and he started restoring cars, basically flipping them and making a profit off of them. And then we got my dad involved in that. And then me by association was like, hey, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old scraping paint off of cars and stuff like that. So it kind of went from there. My dad was always into art. He took multiple art courses when he was in college. Yeah. Kind of pushed me in that direction too. So we talked about a little bit about that before. And then I took a couple of drawing classes when I was in college as well. So I had a little bit of an idea about like color theory, shading, shapes, stuff like that. And of course with the cars, and I used to do models as a kid. I was into Gunpla a lot when I was a kid too. And then I saw this, and this was from the video game. Like when I was playing the Battletech, right? You could paint what is that? The harebrained schemes one? Oh yeah, harebrained schemes, Battletech on Steam.
So you could actually paint them. You go to the captain's quarters, and you could paint them. And I was like goofing around with different colors and shades, and I was like, man, I wonder if I could do this like in real life, right? And sure enough, we could. So that's kind of how I got into it, and it's just cathartic for me. You know, I love doing it.
Watching your progress there, I know what you do for a career, which I would have assumed was art at this point, but isn't.
Yeah.
But knowing some of what you did as a kid, and then like taking some art classes, like seeing your progress on minis, and then we don't have the camera over here right now, but the difference between each type of mini you've done, you can see different techniques you're doing.
Yeah.
And we talked about this off camera, but like the Orion there that you've got, like that one, if I had to be like, which one is Eric's? Like that one looks like your style, but then you're like, okay, I'm going to do these different techniques and try a different thing, and seeing you be able to jump around and do different art styles. So the background you have makes sense to me how that clicks. I would assume maybe some of that is from cars, maybe not.
It is.
But
for sure it is. Yeah, there's some cars like so I've worked personally on things from like Ford Mustang, which is a steel car, right? I've worked on a British car, Triumph TR6s, another steel car, but I've also worked on vintage Corvettes as well. So, and that's fiberglass, right? And you paint fiberglass and you work on fiberglass very differently than you work on a steel car, right? And then the interiors are different, right? And everything about them is a little bit different. So you kind of have to adapt a little bit. Now, some of the fundamentals are the same, like the paint needs to be consistent, but you know, you paint fiberglass differently than you paint steel, right? So that's kind of how I approach that. But also for me, a lot of it is like exploration and experimental to me, and I think I kind of settled on a certain way that I paint, because I do base work out of an airbrush, right? And then if I'm doing fading and blending, I will mix between doing it by hand or doing it out of the Sotar that I use, right?
Sotar 2020, big shout out to Badger.
Worth it. If you're in air, like, I mean, that could be we can go on a whole tangent on that one. Like, I love doing the base coats and I love doing the pre-shading and the underpainting with an airbrush, because there are things that you can just do with an airbrush. You're never going to be able to do it by hand.
And it's a lot of stuff's faster.
Yes.
So like I do the same thing. I'll base a mini. I'll do the zenith little transitions, whatever. And then if it's something I want to look a little bit better than just like tabletop, then I go and we're doing stuff by hand. Or I can get decent fades with like, I guess if I'm doing something that's got multiple colors, and we looked at like some of the HEVs I did, I might use the airbrush to get a nice transition on one color, but then you got to go in and hand paint something else because you can't airbrush because it's small. But the amount of time I have saved over time with just base coating alone has been helpful, and then being able to shoot your varnishes through the airbrush means that you're not subjected to the humidity and stuff that rattle cans give. Worst thing that you can have happen is to have a cool painted mini, take it outside, hit it with a rattle can, and dust it because there's humidity. And then, like, a lot of people think that getting an airbrushing is very expensive. You could get a decent Badger on sale for like $75. Get yourself like a $100 compressor. It's pushing $200, which seems like a lot, but like if you're facing down hundreds of Warhammer minis, how much money did you spend on that?
Exactly.
So it's a drop in the bucket, and it comes down to time. So like if you were to spend $200 ish on an airbrush, I'm not trying to like diminish the price of this because it is money. But if over 6 months of time, that airbrush saves you 20 hours. Let's just throw a number on it. Well, how much do you make per hour, right? And you've saved 20 hours of time. It's paid for itself. And for me, the more older I've gotten, the less free time I have, and the more important airbrushing is. When I first started doing minis, I had a lot of free time. I was in college, so I just painted minis, played video games. But now when I have like maybe one day a week that I can dedicate, like today is, this is the day I'm not doing anything. Nope, I'm doing stuff now. Like, you're an adult, so the airbrush speeds up everything, and it pays dividends in terms of saving you time. So that is a key point for that.
It's funny. Like there are so many techniques you can do. The object source lighting, really easy to do with an airbrush. The like laser swords if you're doing Warhammer, really easy to do with inks and an airbrush. And then the varnishes, and also honestly, like I still prime and using Tamiya Tamiya Surfacer 1500, and you can either use that out of an airbrush and what's the guy that Vincent Venturello, I think is his name. He talks about it in another video that he has about like, oh yeah, you can do it out of an airbrush with the enamel primers, but they're toxic. You got to wear a mask. Gotta do it. And yes, that's true. You do have to. But I find for me, using a rattle can for a primer in a nice area, if you can avoid the weather, and then doing everything else out of the airbrush, I tend to find that the disadvantage of some primers that you tend to gum up your airbrush if you don't thin it properly. But everything else out of an airbrush, I think, is fantastic. Varnishes, I mean, I use either AK Ultra Matte or I use, there's another Ultra Matte, I can't think of the name right now. But yeah, I mean, varnishes out of that, object source lighting, zenithal priming, pre-shading or underpainting out of an airbrush, absolutely necessary. And then, you know, cheat code, right? You underpaint a model, like for example, we'll take this dude, right?
Yeah. So you got a little Orion here we're looking at.
Right. So he was done pre-shaded with...
I'll switch the camera over. So pre-shaded. Well, let's aim the camera down. And this is what happens when you work in a show. I'm just going and all right.
So
we'll bring this guy forward a little bit. Cool. Continue on.
So that guy, I underpainted in black and white, and then I masked out the line, right, to get the gray in. But that was after the fact. So I underpainted, and then I used contrast paint, thinned down out of an airbrush.
Yep, I do that too.
And oh my gosh, like you want to paint like a whole army in like a day.
Yep.
You could totally do that, and all the work. And we talked about this before, I think, and my dad and I talk about this a lot. 90% to 95% of your paint job is going to look nice or not based on how well you do the prep work.
Yep.
Right. So when you're painting a car, sanding down those lines and getting everything nice and sharp and getting everything super smooth, when you finally lay the paint down on a car, it will look like a piece of glass, as opposed to just, you know, you're just getting it done really quick and then slapping paint down on it, just like painting on a model. Like, you know, all of that stuff you do underneath is going to matter, and it will show, right? There's only so much you can hide and so much you can blend out. So doing the contrast paint out of an airbrush, I think, is probably the coolest and the most enjoyable way to use contrast paint, because you're not dealing with coffee staining, right? You're not dealing with pooling on the model. Another dude that was done with contrast is that little boy right there.
Definitely teeny.
Yeah, that was with combinations of blue contrast paint out of an airbrush.
Probably looks like Talasar blue.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And then if you want to go back in, you can always go back in and blend by hand for some of the high spots, which I do that as well. Like I took combinations of reds and oranges and done that. So
for stealing Tsuge's spotlight for a moment, I'm going to throw a guy in here too, and depending on when this goes up, you guys may have seen it.
Beautiful.
But same kind of concept. So this guy in the tutorial for the awesome, same thing. I prepped this one a little bit differently, but same kind of concept. So this one was based red, zenithal white from the top, because if you spray green over red, when it's got that as the underlayer, it kind of looks like a dark brownish green. I forget where I picked that up at, but it's some tip I saw somewhere was a good idea. But this is just Army Paint or Speed Paint through an airbrush. And then I went in by hand and did my highlights and whatnot. But the pre-shading that you did all shows through on those transparent paints. So contrast and speed paints, if you're thinking about using them as beyond just one thick coat or whatever, take advantage of the translucent nature of them and work smarter, not harder. And you can do a lot. And then the same thing with thinning them, even if you're not using it over like a gradient transition, using it as a glaze. So I'll do that like on his barrels and stuff. If I want that black to have a little blue hue, you can really thin that stuff down to where it's just like water with a little tint of blue and just do layers, and you can glaze it over, versus if you try to make a glaze out of standard paint, you can, but that paint already comes out super opaque. So you got to thin it a bunch. Contrast paint's already transparent.
Right.
So if you have the funds to have multiple paint lines or paints, the contrast paints or speed paints all do that for you. And then if you have an airbrush, it speeds it up. So like this is trying to go for like a good quality, what's a good quality, like probably 90% of what I would normally be doing on a Mini, except this was a tutorial. And then if you transition over to one of these bros, it does not look as good, but speed paints through an airbrush. I did 9 models, so the 7 of the 8 out of the Game Armor Combat and the 2 from Beginner Box probably took me like 3 hours.
Yeah, you're being modest. I mean, to be honest with you,
he's fine, but
they're fantastic.
for what they are, I think I do agree. I think they look good. But if you're looking, so I'll show you the side-by-side comparisons here. Slide over Orion and his little boy. If you're looking at like the edge highlights on this little fella, and then he has none. I might have done a quick dry brush, I don't remember, but like this was done very, very quickly, and I think the majority of Battletech players who just want to play, like they'd look at that and be like, "Yo, that took you like an hour or something," and I'd be like, "Yeah." And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, shit, yeah, I want to do that," and it's like Airbrush. That's super good. So I did all the prep work with the pre-shading, blasted it with, and this one's a slightly different color than this guy. This one was by hand. I was more meticulous. This was two different speed paints, a darker green and a lighter green from the top, and I experimented and learned what I liked and didn't like. And these are still fine. This is just the more polished look that I wanted. But for basic tabletop quickly, like the speed paints and airbrush are cheating.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And then like I've got plenty of CSO things now that I'm using contrast paints through, just because it gets the gradation or gradient on the model quickly, and I don't have to sit there and hand blend so much. So that's definitely a pro tip for stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the technique of underpainting or pre-shading is something that definitely is important to learn or to know. There's some techniques that, like, you know, you do the pre-shading on, like I said, in black and white, like you did with the Awesome or with the others, and you just lay that contrast on.
Yep.
And all the blending basically gets done for you in that case. And it's a different style of painting, right? Because like you take, for example, like the Marauder 2, right? So this guy, that's all pro acryl, by the way.
Yep. Big product placement there. There'll be a link in the description below if you'd like to pick some up for the sponsor of the channel.
It's beautiful paints, and they're so nice right out of the bottle because they're so thin. You can throw them in an airbrush, and I almost exclusively use pro acryl in the airbrush because they don't gum up the airbrush and clog it, right? So thin your paints, right? But that guy there is a little bit different. That is not contrast. That is all acrylic. Yeah. And I did the base coat in zenithal, you know, with a dark gray going into a lighter gray, and then I used the Sotar, and then I actually used the airbrush under magnification on that one.
Interesting.
So like, weird way to do it. I got the Sotar right underneath the magnifying lens, and then I got my face on the other side, and I've got the model here, and I'm like goofing around, futzing around with it. But all of the blending on that was done exclusively with the airbrush.
Nice.
So I was trying a different technique with that one. And yeah, I love the way it came out. That gray, but I'm a sucker for that kind of color.
I like gray.
Yeah.
I paint a lot of gray stuff. Also, the highlights are really good. Is that is it almost into white, or is that bright neutral gray as a highlight?
Yeah, it's bright neutral gray on the sides. Like so I tend to do, when I'm doing the models, I pick out, just like you would do a zenithal, I'll pick out like a brighter red or a brighter gray for the 90-degree highlights, right, on the edges. Yeah. And then thinking about it like, you know, in the sun, right, I'll choose like either a bright gray for that one or a white, right? And then I do that on the topmost edge highlighting. I'll use a brighter edge highlight. Just to kind of simulate, you look out in the real world and it's like, okay, you look at a car or you look at just really anything out in the wild, right? It's gonna, even trees, right? Because trees will have like bright green, almost yellow on top with the sun that's beating through its leaves. Yeah. And then on the side, it's still going through the leaves on the outermost edges of the tree, but it's getting darker, right, as it goes in, because the light isn't piercing through as many objects, right? So that's exactly what I did on the models as well. So
I dig it. It looks really good. Also, the choosing, well, now we're into like color theory and choices and stuff. So if you're looking at like these two bros and you've got like his cockpit color, let me just bring it over here. Yay for having cameras. So it kind of got that yellow into orangish color, and then this guy's got like the, focus for me, kind of the purple. Yeah. If I can, there we go. So the color choices of the cockpits are interesting places to splash a color and offset some of the model or balance it and make it look good. So like just about anything's probably going to look good with the gray, but the purple's a really good choice. And then for the white and red, most things probably could have looked good, but I think the yellow and orange looks good. Green might have looked good, and blue might have looked good. But like choosing what you want there is important because there's certain paint schemes. Like if I'm doing I was getting ready to throw like a good example, but then like the example in my head also worked. The color that you choose to put on there might look weird. So like for this, in this case, for example, the purple lenses look great, but if this was like a green model, pink lenses might look kind of weird. Yes. You know, so your canopy glasses from mech to mech may change because you want that that balance of color on the Mini to make sense. Yes. Whereas in reality, the cockpit glass might be the same material on all of these. Right. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I think with, you look at the terrain, you look at the color of the model. Now, if you were just doing this like for tabletop gaming, you may want to try to do something like more like across the board neutral. Like I based a lot of these, like the red model there, the Orion, I based it with a lot of green because red and green complement each other and it gives some nice contrast to the piece in general.
Yeah.
If I put that in a cityscape, maybe in a park, I guess, or something like that. But like, so I think it's important to be cognizant on the color of the base, color of the model, color of the canopy, right? And see what fits. And it's the same thing with like if you're painting a model with certain highlights. Like CSO has a lot of descriptions of models. Shameless plug there.
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, this page is like green with red highlights or something, or whatever the case may be, right? And thinking in your mind like, okay, this is going to be all green, but I want the colors to kind of like look symmetrical and form shapes on that model itself. And using the rule of threes, like kind of like focusing your eye in on an area of the model that you want to focus, because you could do something where the model looks really great, but for whatever reason the color draws your eye to its foot. Right. And for whatever reason the paint just laid down the way it was. And it distracts from the model, and you wanted the focus to be on its canopy, right? But for whatever reason now it's focused on its foot, right? So, like for example, like this, right? Like Justin's model.
Well, I painted it. Tsuge's model. He owns this. This is Tsuge, his mech from my Patreon, and that's the one he opted not to get a lance. He got one mech.
I did,
painted,
I just wanted one. I'm such a fanboy for the Timberwolf.
I mean, who isn't? Even people who are detractors, they still got to admit, like the T-Wolf is like one of the OG battles.
Yeah, it's so true. But you look at it in the green, right? It's beautiful, right? The purple and the green and the black and the green. It really, it really matches nice. And the lasers, it focuses you in on the front of the model, right? And that's the point, right? And same with the terrain. It's a beautiful way to kind of make the eye and tell a story, right? Because that's what you're really doing, is you're telling a story on, okay, where is this guy or girl? They're piloting somewhere, and you're evoking an emotion, right? And that's really what art is all about, right? You're trying to evoke an emotion out of someone, and you do that by telling a story, right? And that, through the artwork.
So this one on the canopies, for a moment, we're talking about colors. Like this one, same with these two. There are a variety that you could have used that probably would have made sense. But with this one in particular, I had to make sure I was balancing like what's going to look good with black and with purple. And there were a couple options that would have looked good. I think red would have been bad. Blue might have worked. A yellow, kind of like what you got on the Orion, might have worked. But for me, I resonated with that green because I thought, as weird as it might seem, green with purple looks good to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I thought this looks great, and it balanced out. And then also I feel like with that transition, especially on these mechs with these large canopies like this and the catapult are really good examples because you have such a large surface area. When you do the jeweling on that, it's innately going to pull the eye forward. Whereas Eric and I were talking earlier about some of the Comstar is working on, like the Black Knight's really cool, but it's like cockpit lenses are so small you can't really get in, and then to see them you got to really pick the model up and look. Some of these models, when you're looking at the table at a downward angle, you see them and it will innately draw your eye forward.
It's so funny, because when I first started painting, I watched your YouTube channel, and I can still see, influences of you in the work that I'm doing, right? Like the varnished look, like it's got almost like a quasi cell shaded kind of vibe going on, and I like that. I like how I like bright colors, like what you were doing too, or what you're still doing, and I like stuff that like stands out on the table for me at least, like because. I mean, that's the point, right? The focus of the game is on the model.
And Tsuge's got a model I can't bring out right now because the mag has you didn't show because it's not been the model hasn't been released yet. But that one's a really good example of what you're talking about, comparing it to like your Orion, and I think that model looks great, and I really like it. But it's got more of again, I can't show it, so you got to use the theater of the mind, folks. Got like an olive drab color for SLDF, looks great. But when you're looking like this guy or this guy with the transition of colors, or like the Mad Cat here, where you can see like it's dark black here, fades into the bright gray to give the illusion of the lighting, That one is a much more drab and different approach,
Yeah.
which again goes back to showing the different techniques and styles that you do. But I really like when you use you're talking about like cell shading.
Yeah.
I like when you do that gradient. If you do it right, it gives you illusion of light and pulls the eye forward.
Yes.
But in this particular case, you've got like 5 different styles you can do, and you're just doing what feels good in the moment.
Yeah.
I think that Mad Cat looks good, but I think I again favor this style as
Right,
well, because like
right.
this looks hyper more stylized, and I like that gradation.
Yes.
But it also comes down like, what are you trying to achieve there?
Right.
And if you, and this is where I struggle some, if you get into a rut where like this is how I paint, and you don't challenge yourself to try new stuff, you might not learn a new technique. So like
Right.
if for whatever reason you painted that style of Mad Cat and you liked it, but like, I don't want to paint that anymore.
Right.
You learn something from it. You know you can do it. What techniques did you learn from it to take somewhere else? So
Yes.
same thing with this. If you learn how to do the gradations or the wet blending, maybe this Orion isn't a style that you personally like. But if you could paint it that way, you learn to do it. Take those techniques and paint in a different way you like, because the tools that
Right.
you're using to do it, they will let you do any other style as well. Don't be afraid to try new
Yes,
stuff.
I totally agree. I mean, that's a segue into this here.
Yeah.
I mean, most recently, I decided that I wanted to try something like more grimdark, you could say.
Yeah.
And so he's dark and gritty.
Get out of the way, Matt Cat. You're not the focus anymore. This guy's the focus.
Right. And I did that in a matter of probably took me about 4 to 6 hours total for the whole thing on that. And
There.
it was, white. Once again, we talk about the importance of using an airbrush.
Yeah.
Or white, an airbrush is a great tool to have in your arsenal. I primed that in gray.
Yep.
And then I sprayed it in Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White.
Yep.
So it doesn't look bold, and it doesn't look very white anymore, right?
Yeah.
But it is, and the reason why it doesn't look that way anymore is because I was doing a more grim dark style, and I was using enamel inks. And once the model was blocked out with all the colors and the metallics and all the color that I wanted on it, then I decided to take brown. It's a villainy ink. Some Goon's Grime maybe or something. It's like a brown enamel ink. I diluted it in mineral spirits, and then I just slopped that bad boy, covered it from head to toe in brown. And you can see how the brown kind of tinted the bold titanium white into like a off-white, like a yellow eggshell color.
Yep, I was going to say eggshell, yep.
And then I went back in after it got toned down, and I went back in and I hand blended some of the high spots on the model and brought some of that back in. What's really cool too is with white it's hard to edge highlight, right? Because how white can you go? So what I decided to do on that one was, instead of edge highlighting it in white, I edge highlighted it in metallic silver, so dark silver.
Yeah.
Right? When you look at like guns that are worn in the wild, right? If they've been ceramic coated, or like if you look at really anything metallic that's metal underneath, if the edges wear enough, right, you're going to see the metal underneath. So that's the goal, or the point that I was making with white, was like, okay, what's a better way to edge highlight white than to edge highlight it black, or edge highlight it dark silver, right? Because the metal will show, and you can kind of see that on that model, right? It looks like it's chipped and worn and beat up. And then I used rust ink on the feet, and it was a totally different direction. And I think, if people are struggling, the point is, like, if people are struggling painting something, like, try something different. Why not?
Yeah, I talk about this on the channel too, like palette cleanser, different techniques, but also palette cleansers. So if you're struggling on a thing, trying something else. So like when I paint busts, there are techniques I learned doing that you can employ elsewhere, but you really get to hone those on busts. So I could do a lot of blending on the bust work. I don't do as much on the mechs, but if I could do it on my wizard guy, if I could do it on his eyeball, I could definitely do it on a battle mech.
Right.
So like if you're hitting some kind of artist block, change it up, try a new paint scheme, or maybe try a different canvas, even if it's a one-off. So one of the things my boss has been doing to work with weathering techniques, different tools, and different enamel stuff. He's got back into the Gunpla stuff you had mentioned earlier, and he's just been playing with that. So it's like having a palette cleanser, a different canvas to play with for a bit is good. And he does wargaming stuff. He doesn't do a lot of Gunpla, but that was something new to like try and use different creative, like especially like kit bashing, modification stuff. Use that creativity to spur something new and try some new techniques. And then you can come back to something else, and you won't realize how that's applicable till you've learned it. So, learning new techniques or new paint jobs is worth doing.
Totally don't be afraid to try something new, right? You never know what you may learn. And then with all these techniques, you settle in on something that you really enjoy, and then you just take a little bit from everything, right? You're like, okay, well, I may use contrast, and then I'll blend it up with acrylics. And this is typically what I do now. I'll do contrast paint, pre-shade contrast paint, blend it out with acrylics and highlight it up. And then I do still use enamel washes extensively on my models, just because I love how they get into the recesses. And then when they dry and when you wipe them off, they don't affect, or they won't peel off the acrylic paint underneath, right? Because acrylic's water soluble versus enamel, which is oil soluble paints or washes,
Solid,
right? So it does tint it a little bit, but not to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, it's like super obnoxious. So yeah, absolutely love it. So recent, if we want to talk about it a little bit, I guess.
While I'm transitioning, Tsuge is figuring out what the next topic might be.
I'm looking here and I'm looking. So and that's something just most recently what I've been working on. Is try and get another technique where I'm doing a lot of blending and getting like a little bit of a rougher blend.
So I think a good segue to bring things back to something else we talked about. Similarities between and difference between like car restoration and painting Battletech. We talked about trying like different techniques and so forth. How do you feel that might relate? So like different techniques on this, doing different things. Do you feel like you did some of that with car stuff too? Like maybe that was like the approach between like working on metal versus working on
like fiberglass. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's a different media. Yeah, and you try different techniques. You see what works. You see what doesn't. I mean, I didn't do as much experimenting in that land.
It's a little harder on a car.
Yeah, it is especially when they're so expensive. And the fact that my dad and my grandfather, they were like, hey, this is how you do it, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of experimenting, not really as much, but a lot of things that we did, like the detail work in the engine bays or the undercarriage on the frame and stuff like that, that allowed me to do a little bit of fun stuff on. Like I would use a paint and I would paint like the letters on like an engine block.
Oh yeah, like on the top where it's like V8 or whatever.
Right, exactly. So I would do like funny stuff like that, or just like little details within the inside of the car that you would never see again. I would just go in there and start to like detail them out, like in a magnesium. They have a cool magnesium green like color, and I can't remember what it's exactly called, but it's used a lot in cars. So outlining things, detailing things like that. So yeah, that kind of I think ties into, maybe a little bit of experimenting on the car, but I mean, every car we would paint a different color too.
Yeah.
Right? So
you're learning some different techniques, but definitely like when we're talking about trying a different model, different technique, it's a lot more forgiving to do it on a $8 piece of plastic than a $60,000 car or something. Yeah.
But the foundations are the same, and I think that goes along the same lines as with model painting as well. Like thinning paints, laying down proper primer, making sure that you're doing proper prep work, making sure that you're understanding that sunlight and color theory, what goes color-wise, what goes well together, what doesn't, right? So all of those things go into play when you're doing stuff like that. And obviously don't forget to have fun with it, because if you're not having fun, I mean, then it's like, you're beaten. If there's a technique that you're trying and you're just not getting it, totally okay to take a step back and pick it back up another time. Like
as you said earlier, I think we were talking about winning and losing, but same concept. Like don't be afraid to like fail at a thing.
Right.
So it's like the way I try and look at failure. And it's rough, it's hard, it's subjective to everybody. But like if you look at failure as just like the next step towards greatness versus actual failure, then your failure is actually something positive in that sense, because you're learning something. So it's like, okay, let me step back and assess what I did or did not do well on this. Next time I can try this and this to try and improve. And if you are reassessing and looking at that, then if your focus is every piece you do or everything you do to do a little bit better than the one before, well, then you're learning from any of your past mistakes. But that can be hard. It can be difficult. When I first tried doing wet blending, and even now when I do it, sometimes I struggle until I get my mix right. I think over time with painting, I've just got more comfortable trying things and then troubleshooting without realizing it. Like, this didn't work. Why? Let me adjust my mix. Let me do this thing. And you just get to a point where you're comfortable working with the medium. And when I first started, if I continued to be that frustrated and quit, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So like being accepting of failure and learning from it is important.
Yeah, I mean, you're learning no matter what. Right, you're learning either from if you want to call them mistakes, or learning from struggles or frustrations, and learning from successes. Right, you're always, you just keep it moving, keep going with it. Right,
and like learning from successes is a really good thing to mention, because like learning from your failures or your shortcomings is important. But like also like, well, this looks good. This is what I set out to do.
Yes.
What did I do right here, and how can I continue to do that better?
Yes. Yeah. Let's try that approach and continue that, and that leads into a lot of people's styles, right? So, which is funny because that's actually kind of a segue into life in general. Because
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit. Not being afraid to take a chance
Yeah.
with things, right?
Yeah.
That goes for work. That goes for like a big project, a
Yeah.
life project. If you have an idea or you have a dream
Yep.
about doing something, starting a business.
Yep.
Right. All those things. It's like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't work out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you do
So,
something else, right? So
bring it full circle. Austin's probably not listening, but a good hockey quote for hockey fans. Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take."
yeah, exactly.
So better to take a shot and risk failure than
Yes.
to not take a shot and have the same result as
Yes.
failure, or close to the same result.
Yes.
And then I saw a motivational video the other day that was talking about he was listing all these things you're going to do. Like, you want to start this business? Not 2025, 2024. You want to go out to eat
Right.
with your mom? Not next month, today. 2024.
Yeah.
And he goes through all these things, and it's like, if you keep putting things off till tomorrow, you'll blink, and then you're like, well, shit, it's been 10 years.
Right.
And then you go back and you wish you had that time. So, like, anything you can figure out to do today to try and make progress, better to start now. And I think it was when I was speaking with Mike, he was basically saying, like, man, I look at my art today, and I wonder what it would look like if I hadn't quit 10 years ago.
Right.
And yes,
Yeah.
that's it. So it's like, if there's something you want to try doing and you want to improve and get better at it, start today.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're not going to be good at it tomorrow.
Right.
You're not going to be good until you start doing it.
Right.
So there's some obvious exceptions to that, because I can't get into minis painting if you can't afford the paints and
Right.
stuff. But like, once you can, or maybe that's a like, make your plan to get into it.
Right.
So like, for me, when I got into minis, a lot of that came into shifting my hobbies. So like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm buying less video games, or I'm spending less on something else because I want to fund this. So
Right.
this sounds cliche, but where there's a will, there is a way. So if
Yeah,
you want to do these
absolutely.
things, start planning to try and figure out how to do it. And remember, you're not in a race with anybody. Like,
Right.
you're on your own little boat, on your own way and your path.
Yeah.
So like, make it happen and be captain. That
Yeah.
sounds funny to me. Be the captain, don't be captain.
I mean, it's really, seize the moment, right?
Yeah.
You have an opportunity, and if there's something you want to do, you should totally take it.
Yeah.
Like, because you may not get that opportunity again. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in life, dude, where if I didn't stick my neck out a little bit, I wouldn't have had the opportunities, or I would have had not experienced those opportunities that have brought me to where I am now. We're talking about living abroad, talking about military experience, right? We talk about professional experience. A lot of the things that I've done in my personal life is because we had a choice, a fork in the road, and we decided that, okay, this one thing was a little bit risky, but let's decide to try to do that, right? And then it led into something else, right? For example, I was in school at the time. I knew my wife. I'm going to all the stories about how I met your mother or whatever it is, or whatever.
If it's funny, that's on you.
But my wife and I, we got married. She went to residency at Walter Reed. She was active duty.
Yep.
And I remember when we first started talking, she was coming down. I was going to pharmacy school, University of Tennessee, and she was going to dental school up at NYU. And I kind of knew, we were talking and stuff, and obviously we started to get to know each other and stuff like that. And then it came to the point where it's like, I think Eric, I kind of want to go down and visit you down in Tennessee. We got to see each other in person. We can't just keep on,
So you were like long distance talking.
We were long distance for a while.
Okay.
We knew each other prior
Okay.
through church, and then we reconnected later on.
Okay.
And I was so funny. I was like, yeah, I guess we could, but and I was an idiot, by the way. Like, who refuses to have this beautiful woman come to visit you, right?
I mean, sometimes in our youth, we are hindsight's 2020. And
yeah, it's really funny.
Back and we were done.
Mistakes were being made. But I told her, I was like, yeah, I just, is there any kind of secret that you have? Like, is there anything that you want to let me know before you come down to visit me? I say, because I don't want any weird stuff, and right. So anyway, so she's like, well, I'm in the Navy, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Right, it's another interesting thing that's cool, right?
Yeah.
And maybe unexpected. That's the point that I'm making. Is maybe unexpected, but okay, so what? Bloom where you're planted, right? So that led us with the Navy. She was resident at Walter Reed for a while, and then I was jobless for a year while I was in the D.C. area, and I was trying to find all kinds of jobs, man.
Yeah.
Like I was a recent graduate from pharmacy school, and I could not find a job to save my life, all the kids that were graduating, they already had jobs because they graduated from like, places in Virginia. And I was coming from Tennessee, moving to a different state, unknown entity.
Yeah.
I eventually landed a gig, a temporary employment with Kaiser Permanente, healthcare system that's out in Cali, but also in the DC area. And I like literally trained for like 4 hours one night. And then we shipped off to go to Japan. And that's where I landed. So, and that's why I talk about the fork in the road and the opportunity. We could have either went to Groton, Connecticut to live on a submarine base and stayed in the United States, which that would have been kind of cool, I guess, right? Being in the Northeast and going to like Boston and going to New York and stuff. But like my wife, like she lived in New York City for 4 years. Like that was kind of like,
new,
I wanted something new. I wanted to do something different. And then it was either that or go to Okinawa. Those were the two choices, right? And I spoke to my parents about it, and I was like, guys, we're going to be on the other side of the planet. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, it's going to be like for 3-4 years, right? And my dad's like, no. He's like, take a chance, like go out and do it. And we've been living with that mantra basically ever since, right? Because oh my gosh, dude, like all this stuff that we experienced when we were over there.
So on the list. I think that's a good segue into it, talking about life abroad, any of the military stuff that ties in, and then were you doing any like extra hobby things at that time, or is this just pure life? And that's okay too.
So
but, talking about, because like a lot of the viewers, my small channel here, if you're like me, you would love to go abroad, but like the majority of us might not get to. And Japan is on my bucket list. Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and just get progressively further away and longer flights, but like. I want to go. It sounds so cool. But being able to, I'm stealing your thunder first.
It's all good.
I forget who it was that I listened to that was talking about reading people's biographies and books, and I don't read. I should, but don't. But his reason for why you read is important. And he basically said that like you can take someone's like autobiography and you can take the sum of like, let's say 65 years of someone's life, if that's how old they are. And you can condense that down into X hundreds of pages of whatever they feel the highlights were. And you can consume their life in a book and learn from their experiences from that. So in this case, it's like you being able to talk about life abroad, things you did in Japan, military life connections. There's a lot of stuff that other people will never experience, but through your talking, they get to. And I think that's fascinating for me. So
it's funny that you mentioned that because when I was growing up, I always thought like life, you have different chapters in life, right? And life really is about all the stories that you can tell, right? And all of this taking a chance is part of that, right? It's a different chapter. It's a different story that you can tell to someone, right? And a different lesson to learn. So hobby-wise, when I was overseas, I was a contractor for the Navy, contract pharmacist. I was not shooting guns and blowing up bad guys and all that kind of stuff. Like that was not my job. My job was to be support staff for the active duty service. And I did work side by side with active duty service members. And it's not like the stuff that I was doing was not important. I mean, we had to respond to mass casualties. We had to respond to codes. Teenage, PTSD and suicide, and that's a thing. It's a real thing. And we had to respond to several of those. Right? When you stick young kids. Service members into
18, 19-year-olds never lived anywhere else in the US.
When you pull them away and you put them in a different environment like that,
and then what Mike talked about in his segment too.
You stay on base, you don't do anything, right? You're chilling in your barracks, right? And you got you got alcohol available to you, right? And 18 to 20 years old for a lot of young guys is when all the uglies come out. That's when mental health, like when schizophrenia comes out, when bipolarism comes out, when depression comes out, right? And you're pulling them away from home. They don't know anything. They're from probably middle of nowhere, United States. And a lot of guys and a lot of girls, they go into the military because it is a way out for them.
There's a good financial incentive.
Yes. So and that's a whole different tangent because we don't really financially take care of our E1s to E3s, even up to our E6s that well.
I forget the statistics, but you'd be shocked how many lower enlisted personnel with families are on food stamps.
That's absolutely right.
They're on WIC. Ridiculous.
It is insane how we don't pay them a living wage, and they're in the military and they're using food stamps at the commissary. It's embarrassing, but that's a whole different story. But anyway, I was support personnel for them, and like I said, we had to respond to codes. We had to take care of people. So there'd be some weeks where I was on day shift, other weeks I was the pharmacist on night shift. I was working inpatient, I was working outpatient, I was doing a little bit of everything. I was helping manage branch clinics. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience, and we lived off base. I lived, if anyone is familiar, if anyone's been deployed to Okinawa, I lived right near Kadena Air Force Base, right on the seawall. So every night I used to go home. I used to, hang out on the porch and cook and watch the ocean, watch the sun go down, right? And I would see like F-35s and F-18s and F-16s. I don't know if I saw any F-15s when I was over there. Anyway,
when were you over
I'd see 2014 to 2018.
Okay.
So I got to see the F-35 when it debuted,
Yeah.
because it was flying out of Iwakuni as well as Okinawa. I got to see F-16s. I got to see F-18s because the Marine Corps is there. I got to see Cobras. I got to see Ospreys. I got to see, which was really wild, I got to see a spy plane take off.
Nice.
Because there was a missile that was launched by Kim Jong-un in North Korea.
Yeah.
And they didn't have satellite coverage on that part of the globe because, the satellite orbits the planet, and the satellite wasn't available. So they had to send a dude out in a spacesuit and launch him out it's crazy, man. I don't know how much detail I can go into. Probably a decent amount because everyone on the island could see it, right?
Yeah. And,
so
you never mentioned if you had security clearances.
I did.
Okay, so then I don't know. You would know better what you're allowed to talk about.
So there are some things I'm allowed to talk about. Other things I could probably vaguely mention a couple of things that were kind of cool. So this U-2 spy plane, right? And we're still using it.
I was going to say we're still using it.
Wow. It launched up like a missile. I thought someone launched a missile. That's how loud this thing was. But I mean, most jets, they'll go maybe like a 33 degree or 45 degree angle when they launch. When they take off. Not this thing, man. This thing launched almost straight up.
Wow.
It was insane, and you could hear it when it was like miles and miles and miles and miles up in the sky. It was crazy. But yeah, they needed eyes on where that missile was launched from, how far it went, and they needed it now.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Hey, dude, get up there. Go take a look," and that's what that guy did.
Yeah.
So, really cool stuff. Like I said, so tons of helicopters, tons of C-130s flying in and out.
Yeah, cargo planes. Yeah.
There was another funny story. So, I was going for a run on the seawall one night, and I was minding my own business, wasn't paying attention, totally oblivious, right? And from behind me, I hear just this whoosh. It was not much noise at all, and it was whoosh. And I turned around, and it was this giant Predator drone. Like whatever the biggest drone they have is,
Wow.
I think it was a Predator drone. It was, I kid you not. I mean, the thing had a wingspan that was probably at least as wide as this building that we're in right now. I mean, it was unbelievable, but you could barely hear it. And the only reason why I knew it was behind me was I didn't notice it because I was just doing my thing, and it just would glide in because it doesn't have any jets. It just right in, and the thing looked like a UFO. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't even know why it was there or what it was doing, but I could share it because it was me and several hundred other people seeing this thing out there.
Yeah.
But we also did some other things overseas. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about. We supplied medications for people that were very important.
So like diplomats or something.
Yeah, diplomats, politicians.
Yeah, I mean, without sharing names, I think that makes sense. One would assume that if you had clearance, that it's because you're allowed to do medical things with XYZ politician, and know that you're not going to share that. I think everyone could assume without you saying who it was.
Yeah, exactly. So from that time period, right? So I saw several people.
Yeah.
That were very important. I didn't meet them in person, but I had to take care of what medications and stuff they needed. What else? I mean, it was just a great experience.
So one of the things that I've heard, I don't know if that's a myth, but when you get orders to go somewhere and they move all your stuff, I heard that they'll take a car for you. Is that the same for everybody, or how does that work? 'Cause I've heard they'll ship a car.
It may depend on where you go. So for us, yes. So yes and no.
Okay.
An American car, you can't really bring it to Japan because they drive on the wrong side of the road.
I was going to ask because I'd heard rumors about GIs getting Mustangs in Japan, and the Japanese car people wanting it because it was unique and rare. And I was going to ask if that's something you ever noticed happen.
No.
Okay.
I'm sure it has happened in the past. I don't know anything about it because I didn't do that. So from 14 to 18, I just missed the cusp of when I could have brought an R33 or 34 back to the States.
Like
so
like a GTR or whatever?
yes. So the 1993 Skyline, I love that car.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone does, right? And I just missed it. I left, and if I stayed a year, I would have been able to bring one of those back with me. Now they will bring if you own a car and you want to bring it back, you can do that. But that Skyline at the time didn't fit within the classic car category where it was over 25 years old.
Because it wasn't
right?
made in the U.S.
Right.
and
so,
all that stuff. Yeah.
So now I can, and they're like 40 grand a pop, right? Yeah. Good luck trying to fix it. So maybe it was
probably a blessing.
Yeah, it was. Parts. It was. So, but yes, you can do that. My brother-in-law is an Army officer right now. He's stationed in Yokohama, down south of Tokyo, and
he can bring one back for you.
Yeah, right. I know, right? He could have. Well, it's so funny because he did ask me. He texted me a couple, actually last night, and he was like, "Hey, man, like, what do you want me to bring you back? Like, since I'm coming back from Japan now." He's PCSing back, which is called I can't remember it's PCS, but I can't remember what the full word is. And someone in the audience can say.
Mike will be in here and be like, "Come on,
Mike is, come on, dude, what are you doing?" But I was like, "Just bring me back Japanese whiskey." I was like, "That's more than enough. I will totally love that."
Almost as good as
the Skyline. But he ended up buying like an Audi some kind of Audi sedan when he was stationed in Germany. He bought it there, and then he shipped that back to the United States. I think my in-laws are holding on to that for him for now, and then he's in Japan. And then when he comes back, he'll just get his car again. So, but yeah. Yeah, you can do that.
That Skyline. Now, I was thinking this might go into like the car territory.
Yeah.
But sort of. So, girl I'm dating now. For Christmas, she bought me a little bit of gag gift, and I opened this gift, and it's a Hot Wheels car, and it's a Nissan Skyline, basically the same model from like Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
It looks great. Cars don't look good today. Yeah. Cars then looked good. There's a distinct body style. Yeah. Everything looks the same. And she's like, "Well, I can't afford to get you the car that you want, but I can't afford this one. If I ever win the lottery, I'll get you the real one." I've got this white Skyline sitting on my shelf.
I love it.
But yeah, so like much like with aesthetics with mechs, there's aesthetics with cars I like. Yeah. So like if you look at we're not going to say today's Mustang because it's not a real Mustang. Whatever they did to that thing.
Yeah, whatever it is.
It's an SUV thing, whatever the heck it is. But like if you look at like Mustangs from a few years ago and then you look at like 60s Mustang or a new Camaro versus like 60s Camaro. Like there's a distinct body style look, and like I'm gonna use this word, and I'm sorry if it offends anyone. They're sexy. Those are good looking cars. And even like today, like there's a status symbol for like owning a Corvette. The new ones look very modern. They're different than current cars, but they're very, very modern. But you go back to like old like Stingray Corvettes, like the body style is so distinctly different. Mm-hmm. Everything today for the most part has shifted. Right. The Skyline, the same thing. Like it had the certain angles on it. Like I owned one of the dream cars in real life that I could own. And it was very basic. Like I always thought the Honda Prelude was an attractive car. I liked the shape. I liked the back end.
Yeah, it's cool. It's different.
There were body kits and stuff that you could get to emulate like the Skyline, which it did not do. Right. But there were aesthetics about that I liked, and they don't make stuff like that anymore. Like everything's kind of starting to get samey. Like when I look at like even the new Bronco came out, and the first time I saw one, I was like, "What kind of Jeep is that?" And then I looked, and I was like, "Oh, it's not Jeep." Right. But much like mechs, at least with Battletech, we have such variety of them. So like, one mech I love, someone else hates because it's aesthetically ugly. Right. Or like the urban mech, which is, you're 50-50 as whether you like it or not. It's an ugly little turd, but I like that thing. So there's a certain
it's
aesthetic
ugly, it's
appeal.
cute, right? Yeah. I feel, it's funny. I tend to paint, going into painting models, I tend to paint models that I like. I mean, I don't know if that's common sense or not, but like I will only paint certain models because I like the way the model is shaped.
I very rarely paint a model that I don't like how it looks. Because I also have to play with it and look at it. And if I don't like it, I don't want to paint it.
Exactly. There are qualities about all of these that I really love.
This one, so you got some of my favorites. Wolfhound's cool. Obviously, Mad Cax, I painted that one. This Marauder's cool. The Crockett's one of my favorites. But I really like the Orion. Yeah. I don't have a finished painted one myself. But I like the asymmetry of it for the same reason I like the Hunchback. The missile rack on the left side is just so interesting to me that it's visually appealing.
I agree with you. Yeah, there's some things about it which is interesting. I love asymmetry in some models, and then on other models I don't. Like I love the Crockett, and for whatever reason, it is very symmetrical because you got the SRMs and then you've got the large lasers on there with the small lasers kind of peeking away. Yeah. And it's the same same reason I love the Thug. Yeah. I love the Thug because it's got those PPCs, it's hunched over, it looks nasty, and it's just really cool looking. for same reason I love. I mean, the Timberwolf is symmetrical as well, but
and
it's
you
got
the Mad Dog over here's one of my favorites as well.
I do. There's something, to me, the Timberwolf reminds me, it's the same kind of iconic style that like a P-51 Mustang has.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like it's
a sexy airplane.
Yes, it is. It's my favorite. It is my favorite World War II airplane, and it's got an incredible sound to it when it goes by because of this. I think it's got superchargers in it or turbos in it. It just whizzes. It's got this really unique whistle to it that's distinct to a P-51. And the Timberwolf has that. It checks all the boxes. When you think of Battletech, I think of the Atlas and I think of the Timberwolf. Those are the two models that always come to my mind when I think of it, and I absolutely love them.
Yeah, that's an interesting aesthetic pivot as well, because like the Mustang, I mean, a lot of the aircraft from that era are all very distinctive, but like we're going to like World War II, the three that come to mind, the Mustang, the Spitfire, and the BF-109, they're all very distinct and interesting. Like, there was a certain elegance to the way things were designed then that they probably didn't have to look as pretty as they did. But they did, and then you go out and you shoot them. But they looked pretty.
Yeah, but they did it anyway. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, this like just certain planes, certain cars, certain models, just they check all those boxes, and they have just an aesthetic beauty about them. It's like the SR-71. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. They don't use that plane anymore, probably because they have something better.
That we don't know about.
Right, that you don't know about.
It'll have to be something we don't know about, because like that's the fastest thing we've ever made, I think.
Well, I think about like it was made with a slide rule. It wasn't made with computer. It wasn't made with AutoCAD. It was made with some dude on a slide rule and an architect's board, right? And it's got these beautiful sloping lines to it, and I feel like to a certain extent, cars nowadays they've lost that, right? They've lost that aesthetic just for the art's sake, right? Because something can be functional, like a Tesla, right? But to me, someone can yell at me in the audience, but like there's some cars out there that's like, they're functional, but man, you're not checking all the boxes for like what's gonna evoke a visceral response in my mind.
I think what has occurred, the minis are a little different, but I think what's occurred, but like the car manufacturing side is very similar to what's happening with video games. They found what the average person is getting, and you just get more of the same, and people aren't taking risks on new-looking cars. Right. Because why would you if this one is polling well and selling well, and would just do more of the same instead of taking the risk? Right. But the interesting thing on the SR-71, I watched a documentary on that. For as aesthetically pleasing as it is, on the ground, almost a hunk of junk until it was moving. They had to design it to where it was designed to be functioning at the altitudes and speed it was going, and at that speed, things expand. Right. So on the ground, that thing was leaking. And its top speed, whatever they clocked it at, was not actually the top speed it could go. They could never actually clock the maximum speed because they could not get it to altitude with enough fuel to do it. Because on the ground, everything had not expanded, so it's leaking whatever, and it takes so much fuel to get to where its aerodynamics are perfect. So they never got the actual maximum because they never had the full stuff on it. They couldn't fuel it and get it up there. Fascinating. But when I watched that documentary, it was talking about like, on the ground, that thing leaked a bunch of shit, and I was like, how? And then they had to explain the heat of it, the heat shielding it had, and how like the separations of the plates they had to design that like once it gets to altitude to max speed, then they're perfect. And it's a perfect machine when it's going like 1,500 miles an hour or something crazy.
I mean, it's wild. Because you also have to think about the friction of the air, right?
Heats it up.
There's a lot of different things that go into that, and it's funny because whoever designed these things, right, originally, I'm sure they had that in mind. Right, because if you think about it, like you have all these panels, all these plates, right? Well, depending on the environment you're in, right, those plates on this model or on that mech will expand, they'll contract, right? Or they're easily replaceable, right? Just like armor, right? You can pop that plate off and put it back on. So whoever designed these originally had a good idea of like some nice sense militaristically what's going on there. So remember you talked to me just going full circle about like hobbies, right? Talking about hobbies in Japan. So the one hobby that stands out to me the most is I used to hunt for sea glass overseas, but I also used to hunt for sea glass marbles over there. Interesting. Right, and you find these little glass marbles because they used to dump their trash in the ocean, set the trash on fire and just kind of let it fizzle out in the ocean. They didn't have official trash disposal services in Japan way back in the day in Okinawa. And you would find all these little marbles that have been tumbled around in the ocean, right? and you have to like look. I mean, if you're standing up, you got to look really hard to find these things. So for whatever reason, I gravitate towards like, you know, things like that require like detail work and like, you know, like really focusing in on something. And for me, that's cathartic. You know, because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like, when I was like early 20s. And I don't take any medication for it. I don't, you know, my way of you know, handling that is things like this. Yeah. That get me focused.
Yeah, hyper-focus,
right? Yep. And also, you know, things that will, you know, kind of create like a cathartic kind of feeling, cathartic sense, right? So hyper-focus, hyper-calm, right? And just I'm in the zone and I'm doing my own thing, right? And in my line of work, it's bizarre because my line of work actually requires like a ton of multitasking and like doing like 6 different things at the same time. And I just struggle with that. I'm not going to lie. But this I like because it really, you know, it keeps me focused on it. So yeah.
Once I get going on it, that helps me as well too, because otherwise my brain's just like squirrel, and it helps. It seems weird 'cause you think with like ADD, you think you can't focus, but once you get something that like it's hyper focus. Like once you got it, like I feel like that's a trend with people I've met that have that. It's like once you get them on what they want to be, that is what matters in that moment.
Yes, exactly. It's funny. My interests, once I'm interested in something, man, it's like full steam ahead. I'm never like 50% when it comes to something that I'm interested in. It's either 0 or it's like 150%. It's really funny.
I mean, once I saw you get into painting, it really went.
It was wow. It's really
like
funny.
Like that YouTube taking off, just straight up like boom.
It's so funny. So I love it. Absolutely love it. So that's kind of what I was doing when I was overseas, and then we, my wife was the department head of the basic school in Quantico. So we went to Quantico after Japan, and I worked in a hospital for a while in Northern Virginia, and then my I didn't paint. I didn't do anything kind of like hobby related there. I did play the Battletech the computer game. Then, and then I took a job working at a cancer center down in Charlotte, and then that's kind of when we got a house down there, and that's when I started getting involved. And started painting. Like I said, I saw your YouTube channel, and you know, it wasn't just the painting, but it was also about like the philosophy and the mindset behind it too, which I think is really important to maintain that perspective. So it kind of led into that.
So to bring it back around here, so we got a little more on the list here. So we've Battletech themed channel for the most part. We've tiptoed around a little bit of it. You want to talk about how you got into Battletech?
Oh man, so it wasn't recent. When I was a kid, and I think I talked about it a little bit on the first video, I used to sit at a bookstore called Babbage's, and I used to sit on the floor right next to the Battletech, all the force manuals, right, or the technical readouts, right, and I would just grab a whole bunch of them from the shelf, and I would sit Indian style, like in between the bookshelves, and I would just flip page to page, and I would just stare at things, right, and it's funny, there were a couple of mechs that still stand out in my mind even to this day that I was like, the Cauldron Board.
Interesting. Yep.
Which
is that the Ebon Jaguar?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why I love that mech. It's
a cool looking model,
man. It's cool. I need to paint one. I'm slacking on. I think I have painted it once or twice, but not like for CSO. Love that mech. The Vulture was another one.
That's
that I've always loved. Obviously the Timberwolf, and then I also. When I was growing up, I loved that, so I used to read and just pour over those books, and you know, my parents would never let me buy them. We didn't have a lot of money growing up as a kid, so they were expensive. And then we had a hobby shop in the same mall that the Babbage's was in, and they sold the Ralpartha metal miniatures. I couldn't buy those either because those were expensive, and Mom and Dad were like, "No, you're not buying that." But they also had collectible card games there. And when I was growing up, this is now about the time where I was like 6th, 7th grade. All the kids were getting into Magic. Magic cards, right? And I used to play Magic cards all the time growing up as a kid, but they weren't mine. I used to have to play with my friends. My parents also wouldn't let me buy those, right? But they did let me buy the Battletech card game growing up. So I had 3 or 4 decks of the Battletech card game. And that also is a big influence in
Yep.
those stuff that I paint because like there are a few paintings or pictures of models that I thought were the bee's knees, man. There was this white banshee. Do you know which card I'm talking about?
I don't remember it.
I should have brought them with me
Yeah.
because I still
I
have it.
love the cards. It's
yeah.
cool.
There's this banshee on there, and he's got like the two, I guess the PBCs on its chest.
Yeah.
And he's got the one gun in it, and like I don't know, it's super iconic, and it's white, and he looks like a ghost or like a skeleton or something, right? Loved it, absolutely loved it. And then they had the imp in it, and the imp was like the king. It was like the king of everything, right? That mech, but it looked like a Robotnik egg from Sonic the Hedgehog with legs.
It does.
So that was kind of fun, kind of funny to look at. And then I used to love looking at all the different variants. Like there was this Jade Falcon Loki picture. Oh man, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Super cool looking. I loved all the Lokis just from the artwork. I know they're not like the the greatest mech out there.
Yeah,
right?
Loki. So the Loki and the Thor. That's two of my favorites as well. Like I like them.
I do too. I absolutely love them. So that was, and then seeing the different variations of the Mad Cat from the card game as well. So I got into Battletech from, long story short, from the technical readouts, then into the card game, and then Mech Commander came out for me at least.
We have very similar, aside from the books, very similar path there because like that right around the same time in the '90s, all this going out, and I played Mech Commander as well.
Oh man, loved Mech Commander. I back in the day when you had like they would sell you like a demo version of the game for like $2 or $3, and then you could buy the full game. Oh man, Mech Commander is still near and dear to my heart, and I wish I figured out a way to port that game or to get an emulator to play it because I would still play it even to this day.
So I've got videos on my channel where I do it. It's just a pain in the butt.
Okay.
But yeah, so like I guess it's listed as abandonware now. I think on the internet, so you can find it.
Okay.
I've still got it, and you can get it to run. It's just you put your disk in or ISO, whatever you got, mount it, and then you can pull all the files to the desktop.
Okay.
And then it'll ask you to mount the ISO anyway. But like once it's on the desktop, you don't even install. Just double click the exe and it runs.
Okay.
The problem that I have. There's a few mods you can get that allow the screen to be bigger because the monitors are bigger now. If my mouse hits one of the corners, it doesn't register no matter what mode it's in, and it'll crash my game. So like when you're like, because the way the game moves like in an angle, like bottom left, top right, or top left, bottom right, whatever. It's like all at an angle. It's not like this. It's canted. So when you go to move stuff, you're constantly moving. Like I got to move the screen. So you're flinging your mouse that direction to move the screen.
Right off of the
and then it
window.
crashes, and I'll be in like a mission I've played 10 times, and it takes 35 minutes to get to the end or something.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm about to win. And that's why that YouTube series stopped because I was so frustrated.
Yeah, you get frustrated.
But yeah, I loved that game. And then Mech Commander 2, I can get Mech Commander 1 to play, and it's older. Mech Commander 2, I cannot get to play on a modern machine.
why.
It's bizarre.
So Mech Commander 1, I remember replaying. It's either the second or third mission.
Oh, for the Mad Cat?
Yes.
Yep, everybody
Yes.
does. Yeah.
Over
you want
and
to salvage
over.
it.
Yes. Yeah, just because I wanted to salvage that Mad Cat, and I was like, I need that in my life.
Yep.
I don't care.
Everyone who plays Mech Commander do that.
Yeah. And then for Mech Commander 2, I have like a huge love for the Blood Asp because of...
It's on the cover.
Yes. Yes. And because of his debut.
Yeah.
In shameless plug for CGL and for that because I can't wait. I think when I pledged for the Kickstarter, I think every bonus that I got is a Blood Asp. I think I've got like 10 of those.
I did not get that many. I got 2 or 3.
I love that mech to death.
It's very cool.
So great memories with the heavy lasers and just like owning everything and killing that
Also,
Steiner
back when
dude at the end.
You got those like FMVs. You don't get it that way. Like with real actors that were filmed.
Yes.
That old school thing.
Yes.
But that also comes back to aesthetics and vibes. But the cards. So like a lot of the modern artwork, you've got a couple of artists doing stuff. Eldon and Scroggins. Their stuff looks really good. But there's something about that old artwork because. You had basically a lot of the same artists that were doing stuff for Magic because like Wizards was doing the game.
Yes.
So they were painting mechs, and then one person's vision of like, here's roughly what a Mad Cat would look like versus another guy, and how they did it. They had different styles, different vibes, and the different grit to it.
Right.
It was so interesting. And while I appreciate a lot of the art we have now, then I feel like we had so much variety in artists, and that was really interesting to see what they had and a different feel to it that I think we're lacking currently.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think that's why being part, you and I being part of CSO is so nice, right? Because everybody has a different style, right? Like to a certain extent, right? You've got like your style, you've got mine, you've got Faith and Heresy style, right? You've got Navian, you've got Arclight,
Yep.
you've got Savage Coyote, and all
Bushido, got the one in it,
Bushido, yes. I mean, and
every
Delaware
one of those you just
Dog
mentioned is
and
very
Cracker
different,
Box.
yeah.
I mean, and Papa Chicken. Like, I mean, everybody has just a slightly different way of interpreting
Yeah.
stuff, and the pictures that they take, and the settings that they're in, and all of that stuff is slightly different, which is so nice to see. Not really going to change the models, right? Because that's a
Yeah.
thing that's set in stone. But everything else is really cool.
So you've mentioned some of this, but like I'll ask it here because we missed one. Favorite mech or faction for BattleTech? If you had to pick one.
I mean, Timberwolf hands down is still my favorite mech of all time. Okay. I mean, you're not going to change my mind on that.
Okay, number two mech then. If it's not the poster child, what's your second in line?
Oh, that's a tougher question than number one, right? Like number two for me. So there are a few. The Thor is up there for me. The Thug is a close second for me. Vulture is another one. But I think all of those will probably get eclipsed by the Marauder.
Interesting. Standard Marauder, OG Marauder.
Yes, the OG or the the Royal variant or whatever you want to go with. Yeah. That Marauder, I don't know.
It's iconic BattleTech.
It is. It is.
It'd be hard for me to pick like a number one. Again, Mad Cat's very iconic, but like from Inner Sphere, I'll rattle these off, and I've done this before. You got the Marauder, the Warhammer, the Shadowhawk, the Griffin. Rifleman, like those are, they all probably are also Robotech or Macross as well. Yeah, probably all of those are.
I think they are, yeah. Or they're, what's the other one? What's the other anime? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But those are all like, for me, I didn't know those were from anime. I knew them as BattleTech.
Right.
And then from like the clan side, you had the Mad Cat, you had the Hellbringer, you had the Summoner, you had the Mad Dog, and then that was the four that I knew before I even knew what a star was. But that were iconic, and then obviously you've got the Atlas. So all of those are things that like just scream BattleTech to me, and it'd be hard to pick a second. And then like when it comes to asymmetry, like the Hunchback is one of my favorites because it's got that asymmetry. The Orion. From the old video games, I really like the Hollander. We just unfortunately don't have a cool plastic one because again, it's got that like side cannon, which I really liked. So as we segue from towards the end, like just the BattleTech specific, do you have any like memorable experiences or battles, games you played, anything that stands out that you haven't shared?
That I haven't shared, battles experience, like with BattleTech?
Yeah, like so everyone's got like, it could be a game, could be minis, could be a video game, could be anything. Like everyone's got that story where like, mine from Adepticon that I've told where the guy walked up on me, blew up my mech, or mostly blew up my mech, and then I torso turned, or I positioned such a way he could only hit one side. I turned, and then I box carded him in the head with ERPPCs and put his mech down, and it was wild. Like those kinds of stories. There's something that stands out for you that just, if someone had to say like your most memorable thing in BattleTech.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I know for me, I don't do a ton of tabletop gaming. Most of my experience is from like MechWarrior Online or MechWarrior 5. I do remember this one time that, the most memorable part for me, I had a, do you know MechWarrior 5, the Basilisk? Are you familiar with this mech?
No, I barely played MechWarrior 5.
Okay, well there's a Victor that's like kind of like a custom mech, right? And you can put like different kinds of guns on it. So the loadout that I used is one that's double heavy rifle, right? So really slow reload, but like
it's like a truck.
Yeah. Well, I smoked this Highlander out like max distance, like right in the noggin with that thing. Nice. Like and I saw it like arc, and it was going and straight up headshot him and kill him. And it's funny stuff like that I see. I wish I had a story of like tabletop where I box card someone in the head. Maybe that'll happen later.
Maybe. So on the MechWarrior front, I've gotten, I think, one headshot kill in MechWarrior Online, and I was using the character variant of the Hunchback, the Gridiron, and he's got this like heavy Gauss or something in it. Yeah. And this mech came around the corner, and like you don't get to click with Gauss in that. I don't know if MechWarrior 5 is the same. You have to charge and let go. So like I'm charging
Yeah.
and letting go and doing
Yeah.
stuff, and I was charging. This guy came around the corner, and I went let go, and bam! And then you get your cockpit siren goes off when you get
Right.
a kill, and I was like, what just happened? I headshot that mech,
Yeah.
point blank with a heavy Gauss, which is really short range, and I do not do well in that mech,
Right,
but
right.
it's really fun when it hits. It's the reason
Yeah.
why I like AC-20s and classic, 'cause
Yeah.
when they hit, they hit.
Right.
And I clocked that guy, and I was like, that was not skill, that was all luck. But
was all luck.
awesome. It was awesome. So, how like next topic we've got here is we're winding down CSO. We've talked a lot about it. Any thoughts on you getting in? How rewarding it might have been, your experience
Yeah.
thus far, and like how that has maybe changed your perspective on how you engage with the community, or how you see yourself like trying to help Battletech grow. Any of those things?
Oh man. It's been very, very rewarding. It's been very unexpected.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, when I started doing this, this is not what I had in mind
Yeah.
at all. Like I was just having fun painting models and stuff like that.
So you got in like, when did you get in?
Okay, it was like the end of it's about 8-9 months ago.
Okay, so
now.
this
So-
time last year, you were still hobby painting. You were not.
Yeah.
CSO,
I was
right, right.
still putting together stuff
And
to submit. Yeah.
Less than a year later, you now have minis that are going to Gen Con. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
like 0 to like your minis are going to be on display at an official like
Right.
CGL booth.
Yeah.
So that's how quick that's happened.
It's been like a whirlwind,
Yeah.
man. I mean, it's hard to describe. I love it. The guys have been fantastic. The experience has been amazing. Like, you know, super supportive, right? We have like a nice crew. I mean, you and I, we like,
Yeah.
you know, we chat all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we have like a small group, and CSO has so many members. It's like we all have like different
Yeah.
little groups of guys within groups, like, you know, chit chatting about
Yeah.
different things and stuff offline.
The two guys that I talk to the most are so Erik and Tsuge, and then Faith and Heresy.
Yeah.
Did he ever actually tell us his real name?
I know his real name, but I don't know
won't
if he's
say,
willing
'cause
to.
I can't remember. I'll have to ask off screen because I feel like
Yeah.
you told me, but I once I know someone's call sign, that's all I use.
Right,
So that's
right.
why I've gone between Erik and Tsuge this whole
Yeah.
time. But yeah, like so, I remember the post or the comment I made on YouTube. I think when I was encouraging you to submit to CSO, because I think that was when we did the grinder box. Probably when I was looking at your stuff. I think that's right around when that happened.
Yeah.
And so then you were on the process, and then Faith and Heresy was on the process, and I talked to you guys the most because I was one of the ones that was talking to you while you were in the process.
Right.
And disclaimer, not trying to like coach or help people get in, but like they spoke with me, were like actively wanting critique. And then just the conversation never really stopped.
Yeah.
And then honestly, like I gave you a little bit of feedback on stuff, but didn't really need it. And then Faith and Heresy, I was like, dude, like I don't know what you want from me. These all look good. If you want me to
Yeah.
nitpick, I'll tell you a thing.
Right.
And I gave my recommendation. I said, but that's purely like subjective, not
Right.
objective. This thing that I think would look better is from personal taste.
Right,
And
exactly.
that thing, I won't say what it is. He still paints the way he wants and does it his way, and that is what it is, and that's okay. Much like your Highlander that I gave you crap for because
Right.
it wasn't for me paint scheme wise,
Yeah.
but artistic skill wise, you check all the boxes because I know.
Yeah.
And what I like and what someone else likes is allowed to be different, and that's what's great.
That's
so.
what makes the world go around. Yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, it's been a fantastic experience. The people that I met have been amazing. And it's nice to, you know, I try to be as approachable as possible.
Yeah.
Like if people, just like Faith and Heresy, just like
Yeah.
you know, if other people ask me for feedback, I am more than happy to give it. And I try to give that feedback in a constructive way and not just say like, hey, look, you know, I think you suck.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't like it. Well, look, man, it's art.
Yeah.
Like you know, just like to your point, some people are going to love one thing, other people are not, and that's okay, right? That's the way.
This happens in art competitions too.
Right, it's the
You'll
same
take something
exact
to
thing.
one thing, and judges will say it's bad. You'll take it to another art comp with the equally skilled judges
Yes.
who are judging and who think it's great. Some of this is subjective.
So I try my best to be as objective as possible with the artwork that people submit to me, and I always try to be encouraging as well. Like, you know, there's a way to give good feedback and to edify and to, you know, give it so where it's benefiting to everyone, as opposed to, I don't like that. Well, why don't you like it? I mean, I've had that from other artists tell me that. Well, you know, I don't like your model. Yeah. Great. What don't you like about it? I really don't care that you don't like it, because someone else is going to like it, and then someone else is not going to like it. Tell me why.
Yeah.
And because I can't improve unless you tell me what you don't like about it, right? And if people consistently enough tell me that they don't like it, then there's something that I need to pivot and I need to adjust with, right? If you don't like something and you don't give me a reason why you don't like it, then I can't do anything with that feedback,
give
right?
some constructive criticism,
give me something constructive to work on instead of just, just throwing that out there into the universe, right? And I've seen other artists on Discord, they will do that, right? And these may be artists that are trying to submit, right? And that doesn't foster a beneficial climate or culture or community within Battletech, right? You're not helping each other out to grow. You're just like, giving someone a hard time about it, or it could be that you maybe you like that model and you're just hating on it just to be a hater. I mean, who knows, right?
So I think we've danced around. I have a list here of things we're going through. We have danced all over this thing. So I think we've addressed Battletech pretty well, camo specs pretty well. But you keyed in on something there. You talked about community. So, like, from your perspective, how do you feel like? What is the importance of community in hobbies like BattleTech? How do you feel about that?
Like things that I like to see within BattleTech, or things that community in general. Like, what do I think about community in general?
Yeah, sure. Or like why is it important? Because you were towing in on some of that, like given the constructive stuff, but like the community being important. How do you feel about it? What do you think? Like,
I think, by and large, most of the people that I meet have been super great.
Yeah.
And they just want to play, play with the miniatures and have a really good time. And, I use this as an escape from reality in a sense, and I think a lot of other guys and girls do too. And I think that they just want to play robots and they want to have fun. And I think they want to get absorbed into this because all the other outside craziness that's existing in the world right now, right? Like, they can put all of that aside and not get wrapped up.
Yeah, this is your escape.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And for me, and I know it is for me, and for me, if that changes in a way for me, then I'm going to be really upset about that, and I may just I may actually start looking for something else that offers that escape, right? So. I compartmentalize a lot of things, and I think I've done that in life in general.
Yeah.
And for me, I like this, and this gives me that opportunity to kind of express myself, right? And to do it like in a relatively safe area to do so.
Yep.
So
like to add on to this, why the importance of having a community in a hobby like BattleTech, when you're comparing it to like Warhammer 40K, it's such a big IP that you're losing a couple people here and there. You're not going to be losing people in droves most likely, but this is a niche with a niche. It's very small, and BattleTech in its current state, we're in like a good I don't want to say like a resurgence. That's a good word. So resurgence kind of area, but it has existed and got to this point because the community has helped drive it there. Right. So it's very important to be trying to grow the community and bring people in versus trying to push people out. And some of that has to do with your attitude. And I'll give you an example. When I play minis games and stuff, and we talked about this before we even started today, if I'm playing a game with someone, my goal is not to dumpster dunk them. Yes, if we're playing a game, the objective is to win. I will play within the mission parameters to win, but how am I going to win the game? And not literally tactics, but how am I going to conduct myself? So if I conduct myself in such a way that someone who's new to BattleTech goes, well, screw this guy, this wasn't fun, that guy's an asshole, and maybe that's true, and maybe they shouldn't assume the whole community is going to be that way. But if you go to a restaurant and your first experience there is bad, you may never go back. Right. And you 9 times out of 10 that experience might be good. But if your first one's bad, it may put a sour taste in your mouth. Yeah. So if you want to see the community grow, be a part of what is helping it grow. And if you're playing with someone, make sure that they're having fun. Don't have to throw the game, but find ways to make sure they're engaged, because for you to play games and roll dice, they have to want to do so. And the same thing with painting. Tsuge and I, anyone from CSO, any really good artist, objective or subjectively, however you want to look at it, can get in these communities and tear people down. And I won't share names, but there's a prominent community figure at one point that posted on Reddit and said somebody had posted their work. And generally, if someone's posting on Reddit and they're really asking for constructive criticism, they're one a little dopamine dump. They're excited about their work, and there's always a bigger fish. So when I see work like that, it's usually, if I want to give them constructive criticism, if they want it, I'll say, you're doing X, Y, and Z very good. Keep practicing that and working on it. Here's a few areas for improvement. So you tell them what they're already doing good to reinforce, and then give them areas to improve. You don't just tear them down. This individual, instead of doing that, providing something constructive, giving a thumbs up and just moving on, or just ignoring the post in general, posted a picture and said, this is what this should look like. That's horseshit. Don't do that. That just makes you look like an asshole. And then you're basically telling that person that posted their work, theirs isn't good, yours is better, and this is how it is. And that's not fair. It's not right. And anyone who sees artwork on the internet can probably determine, like, oh, this looks better than that, or mine might look better than this objectively. You could probably discern that, but no one's in a race here. And if I go, like I'm doing a paint class at Nova, if I sit down and everyone at paint class has never touched a paintbrush, and I'm like, I'm better than you, should look this way, I'm doing it wrong. The idea is I should be trying to lift other people up and move them forward and help them progress, and that's the way the community should be. So if you start to feel like the community is having some problems, make sure you're not the toxic person in it that's just spoiling the other fruit in that basket. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So one of the things that you and Faith do a lot better than I do, especially with social media posts, is like trying to do community engagement. I don't know if you actually post in the Discord for CSO, because once I get off work, I would retreat, and I'm in like a little bubble of my alone time, because my social battery is out. So like you guys they communicate with me in private. But do you have any thoughts on engaging with the community or contributing to the community?
I think in regards to engaging, like I said, anybody that asks me for input, I am more than happy to give. And I think
I send people to you and Faith all the time.
Yeah,
like if they're like messaging me about wanting to get in CSO, I'm like, if you like, I will also give you advice. But I'm like, Faith and Tsuge will 100% break down your artwork for you and help you out, and they will do so in a way that is not dickish. Not that other CSO artists are, but if you're asking the general population, you might get a variety of things that are helpful or not helpful. If you want very specific, you guys do a really good job with that.
I appreciate it, man. I think for me, if there's something that I don't like about a model or someone's artwork, I will ask them a question about it, right? Instead of being like, oh, I think this is not good. I will say something like, what do you think about the fact that your model doesn't have antennas? Or what do you think about, how do you like that bass? Right? Or what do you think about...
Kind of leading them to come up with that.
Right, exactly. Like kind of pushing them in that direction. Or what do you think about the color? How is it matching the bass? And what other options have you tried, right? Or subtle things like that. Or like with photography, I'll say like, okay, well, what about your ISO? What is that looking at right now? Or what is your f-stop looking at? Or what do you think about that backdrop and how it matches the model? What do you think? Do you think it mixes in? Do you think it blends in? Or do you think that there's a good contrast? So I won't just outright say like, hey, no, that's not a good idea. I leave that up to the person to decide, right? But yeah, I think community engagement, being there, it's just like being a parent, right? Like being there for your kids, spending time with your kids, spending time messaging people and back and forth. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but you know what? That's okay. Being out there and about and helping out people to kind of grow that community, right? And then that person gets an experience that's positive, right? And then they're like, wow, that guy was not a total jerk to me. The next person, because if I get in, right? First of all, if that person gets in and I'm a jerk to them, well, what's going to happen then? We're both CSO artists now, right? Now I'm going to have to talk to that person every day, or like, right? So there's part of that, right? The golden rule: do unto others, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you've got that, and then that person then will do that with other people, right? And then those people will do that with other people, right? So it becomes exponential. The kind of growth and the kind of goodwill that you're spreading among people within that community. Instead of like, because I've seen other artists on Instagram, and I won't name them, but I will comment on them, be like, yeah, man, great job on that. Crickets, right? And I've seen from the opposite perspective, one person saying to this other person, hey, I don't really like how that one piece works. And then this other person says, well, that's your opinion. Okay, well, first of all, yes, that other person didn't give really constructive feedback, but then that other person didn't take that feedback very well either, right? So a lot of that is about humility and being like, okay, this, and I've had multiple times where someone has said to me, okay, well, I don't like this, and then they have given input as well. When I first got started, from you and then from Faith, right? He's like, no, don't take a picture like that. Take it like this. Try it this way.
Faith is very particular on pictures. I have CSO submissions that are approved that he's still not happy with composition of the angles.
Exactly.
He will call you out.
So in taking that and learning to grow, and for anyone that wants to apply to CSO, I can definitely say like, it is about competency, right? And that's in every profession,
Yeah.
competency, right? But it's also about fit
Yeah.
and talking about personality type,
Yeah.
right? If you're like high on your own supply,
Yeah.
and you think that you're the greatest guy or girl in the world that
Yeah.
does this hobby, you know, prepare to be humbled,
Yeah.
and prepare to, you know, take critique,
Yep.
and prepare to be able to mesh well
Yeah.
with everybody else.
Apologize if you guys hear this. There's mowing going on.
Yeah, the weed
The
whacker.
mics probably aren't picking it up, but if they do and you hear weird noise, we're not in here like running some kind of weird sweatshop or something. It's lawnmowers.
Yeah.
One of the things you said, which was similar to the things that I used to say on Twitch, you were talking about like planting a seed, or you didn't word it that way, but like doing a thing and it's exponential. And I talked about like planting a seed, and that like if you sit down to play a war game with somebody, you're bringing your tiny little toy soldiers to battle, they're bringing theirs. That might be the only time you ever play with that person. Your story, your narrative's going on the
Yes.
table, their story, their narrative, and you're making a battle. And one of the ways that I focus on that is trying to think like, okay, there are dice rolls that are dictating how the story goes, much
Right.
like Dungeons and Dragons. But when they leave the table, you want them to be thinking like, that was epic, that was cool, and remembering this cool experience. And you want them to be like, yo, that guy had a really good approach. I had a really good time with him. I want to be that way. I want
Right.
to do this thing, and they do it with this person and this person. And you start to be the catalyst of like a positive growth in the community.
Right.
Whereas the negative, toxic side of doing something, like in this case, we were talking about like community comments and stuff in terms of painting, but same thing with the wargaming. If you are that guy and you do something and someone exits a hobby, but then someone else tries to match that guy-ism,
Right.
and then they do it to someone and they leave the hobby, you're not growing, you're shrinking, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you look, and the only people left are the hyper-competitives, and if that's what you want, that's fine, but you don't want an echo chamber of people who all
Right.
have a toxic trait.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's so funny. Like you talked to me about my biggest experience and my funnest experience within Battletech.
Yeah.
Like I kind of compartmentalize it into a few things.
Yeah.
You know, if we wanted to like elaborate it any further, you know, because going on a segue to that personal experience, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to duplicate that headshot ever again in a video game my entire life.
yeah.
But secondly, like going to Southern Assault, right? Meeting you all up there.
Yeah.
You know, in your outfit and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
I
You know,
forgot the
just
first
like-
time we met in person, I was dressed
that
like
was
a
hilarious.
moron. Yeah.
But then the group stuff like at Kelly's house.
Yeah.
Right, because that
Yeah,
was
we did
really
that too. Yeah,
the,
yeah.
the first Kelly was so welcoming, you were so welcoming, man, and I got annihilated in that classic version of that game that we played. It was really funny. I think I fell down in that game.
That happens.
Right, and it was literally the first turn, and I was like, "Why? What do I do?
Yeah.
I don't think I can do anything now." I'm like, lay it down. My whole half of me is gone. But you know, you're right. That first experience really sets the tone for whether or not you want to continue to play or that experience. And you know, I remember you talking about that little kid trash talking. I don't know. He was like, I don't know, was it Star Wars?
Oh, God. Star Wars minis.
So you know, I don't know if that kid, who knows, maybe that kid still plays, maybe he doesn't.
I
You know,
tried
but-
to. Well, so after that
So-
experience, so you guys referring to episode 1 of TNT, where I was talking
Yeah.
with us or John about me playing with this kid named Jared. He's not a kid now. That was 18 years ago. So
Yeah.
that kid's probably like 28 or 26 or something, and
Yeah.
I just imagine he's just a stacked muscle head now.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine. I've tried to find him on Facebook, but I
Yeah.
can't. But like he was talking mad trash, and I'm in my early 20s. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna beat you. He keeps doing this, and I was like, sure you are, bud. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
like, okay, and he won't stop. His
Yeah.
dad's sitting next to him, he's kind of laughing, and we're alternating placing pieces, and then like he puts everything in the elevator, and I'm just smug as shit. And I was like, John, come here. I'm gonna win this game on turn 1. And he's like, what? I was like, I want you to come see this. And on turn 1, I took R2D2. I locked the elevator door, and he had no one who could blow doors. And I
Yeah.
was like, I win. He can't move his pieces in play.
Yeah.
And then John's like, well, no, you can only do that for 3 turns, and I had a loophole. Well, actually, I had someone else who could like force a door open, but then close it with a different character, and I kept just throwing grenades in on this kid.
Yeah.
It's funny to talk about, and it was funny in the moment, but it's not funny knowing that kid might have had a bad experience on my part. Part of that is growing, maturing, and being able
Yeah.
to identify it, and I wouldn't want that to happen today.
Right.
And that's why I tried to find him on Facebook, because I wanted to see, and it's like, you're not going to be able to apologize to everyone in life you've ever wronged,
Right.
but like, that was me being a dickhead at 20-something years old. And
Yeah.
it's like, I knew I was going to beat him anyway. I
Right,
didn't have to
right,
do it that
right.
way. And so, like, you learn
Yeah.
as being that guy at one point, and you start realizing what you don't want to be. And that's why I have grown from where I was to, like, this hyper-competitive stuff is not, it's not healthy.
Right.
And for what I want the community to be, I need to be doing something that's growing and welcoming, not abrasive and rude.
Right.
And you know, it took a little time to get there, which is why part of my message on these videos is always stuff like that. Because if you if you stumble across this and you are one of those people and you identify like, oh shit, I might be the problem. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It just, you know, this community is so niche and so small to begin with. You know, and if we continue to go down this path of like, you know, you gatekeeping or just, you know, going at it with each other, you know, sooner or later, you know, this will be gone. Yeah. And then what are you going to do? I guess you can go to a different game, but that fun that you had, you know, you won't be able to continue that. And if you want to pass it along to kids, you know, your kids or you know, or if you want to grab a pickup game, I mean, we're all getting older.
You're not getting any younger.
And then sooner or later, you're just going to have a bunch of people, you know, that are gone, and you won't be able to play it anymore. Yep. So, you know, it's that's really sad, right? Yep. So, and there are plenty of games out there that have not lasted the test of time that are gone now, right? And I'm sure I don't have any personal examples of this because I'm not in the hobby shop enough to, but I'm sure there's some hobby shop owners that are like, yeah, I've got this one guy that comes in and he plays whatever it is that he plays, right? And there's another guy that meets him, and it used to be full, and now it's like these two guys only play it, and once they're gone, you know, that's it, you know, and that kind of culture and that environment and that interaction is no longer there, and that's really sad. I mean, I think you and I, we're old enough now. We've seen Battletech be battle droids. We've seen it, you know, change hands like you know so many times, and
a lot of IP issues.
Right, exactly. And we're
missing out on time.
Right,
That's the big deal. It's like while those issues are happening, we're not enjoying battle. You could still enjoy some aspects, but there's no growth.
Right. But we're reaching a point where there's a crossroads, just like we were talking about with life, right? Yeah. There's an opportunity now for this game to really explode in a big way, right? And it'll be interesting to see what happens with it, right? And I really hope that it doesn't go away and go in a negative direction and cause more division and more strife within it, because what will happen is people will just stop purchasing product. They will stop investing in the game, playing this game, and then before you know it, you know, no one's playing it. And once again, we go back to those two guys that are in the hobby shop, and those are the only two guys that play that game, and you know, and then you know, sucks for me because I got to find something new to paint, right? So it's like, you know, and I don't want to paint that anymore. I want to paint this. So, you know, it's very important to be a positive influence in the community and not a detractor. You know, where you're projecting whatever it is in your life in a negative way. You're projecting it out on other people, whether it's dumpster diving on them.
Oh, dumpster dunking.
Or dumpster dunking. See, I don't even know how to say it right.
That's Adam from DRD says that.
I was going to say something else, and I'm trying to keep it PG.
Oh, I've dropped some curse words. My audience skews like 30 to 45 male or something.
So or you know, whether it's like teabagging someone on the table, or it's you know, being nasty to them on social media. You know, there isn't really a place for that because it's not fostering a good community. Great people left 40K to come to Battletech for a multitude of reasons. And, you know, you're just going to push those people out again, right? And they're going to go someplace else. And then you're right. Who are you going to play with then, right?
So a couple things on that. We won't get into particulars, but I feel like if you want to find a reason to fight with someone or argue, you will, and you can. And is it to the benefit of the community? And I feel like right now in Battletech we get a lot of divisiveness, and for one reason or another, for things that for the most part like don't much matter. Right. But we've assigned a lot of importance to various things, and people like you just start fighting over things that just don't matter. And I'll give a good example. So John, guy that's been on the channel a few times, we had a falling out for about 10 years, and you know we've not been on the same level, and there's a variety of reasons for why that happened, and pride some of it because you don't want to be the first one to try and like reconcile, and then when we finally did, we had a realization that like during this time where we're not having bro time and hanging out over something that in hindsight is so utterly stupid, that is 10 years of TCGs we're not playing, Star Wars minis we're not playing, Warhammer 40K we're not playing, Battletech we're not playing. We missed out on 10 years, and then you start looking at the time, and I guess at the time it's been a couple years now, but I was probably like early 30s, and it's like, Yeah, I had the majority of my 20s gone. And what are all the things that we could have been? Now, I know him in person, but it's like, we're not going to parties, we're not doing stuff, we're not camping. Like, if things had not ended up the way they did, we might have been roommates or something. Now, that's a physical in-person engagement, but if you extrapolate and look at the community, if whatever's giving you the division and the fighting, like, and that person exits the hobby, they don't deal with you, if you met that person in person later on, you might realize that like you guys are actually pretty chill, and it's like, well, shit, we could have been doing cool stuff together, and then we're not. And I had a guy, he might still be blocked on my Facebook. He said something really nasty to me once, and I just was like, I don't got time for this. And then you fast forward however many years, and it was a political thing that he was getting at, I think. And I was like, I don't got time for this. And then I fast forward, we're at the shop, and one of my minis goes missing. And I don't want to point fingers at people, but you start looking at where everything is, and then you start tracking down, the possibilities. And I had to walk over, I had to swallow my pride, like, I really don't want to deal with this guy. And I walked over and said, hey, like, I don't think you actually took anything. I was like, but like all your totes that opened, they were right next to the table. It's possible one fell over. Like, again, I'm not like accusing you, but like, do you mind if we just go through and look, see if it got knocked in? He engaged with me just fine. And I was like, well, shit, I thought he was still gonna be mad. So I feel like there's a certain, I talk about this in some of my videos too, we are more connected than ever with the internet, but somehow so distant from everybody. Yeah. And the things that have polarized us or seem trivial on the internet, those same people, if you were playing a war game with them in the shop, those topics may not come up, and you may have a good time. Yeah. But it's really easy to sit there and pick an argument on the internet, and then do something that's like, ends up being a net negative for everybody involved. And especially because whatever it is you're fighting over in the Battletech, realm, maybe there's a better place to do it. But you do it here and other people see it, and then you probably don't realize about how many people go through and they see the negativity, and then they go, unfollow, leave group, I'm checking out. I don't need this in my life, because we come to this hobby to escape reality and to feel good. Yes, I'm blowing up toy soldiers, and if this was real, like your soldier doesn't want to get blowed up, right? But when I blow up your little mag cat on the table, nothing bad's actually happening. We're just rolling dice and making a cool story. If I can't get that enjoyment, then what am I doing here? And I think that's some of the problem. So as the theme, I guess, towards the end of the video here, or the segment, is just, as we said earlier, like, try and leave the world a better place than you found it, and try and be a beacon of positivity in the community. If you feel like what you're doing is like somehow a net negative, maybe take a moment and step back, reassess, figure out if what you're doing is wrong, or if there's a better way to do it, if you feel that strongly about it. Because like right now, I feel like, especially, this is getting a bit more pushing politics more than I intended to, but like, and it's hard, especially at our age, because it's important, but like, we are so divided right now, and like, I feel like the ability to have civil discourse is gone. We don't have it. So like, if you're gonna have the discourse, make sure that you can do it in a constructive way, and if you can't, it's probably not worth doing, because who's yelling louder is not doing anything. And take it from me, like, I don't post on social media much anymore, and with the Battletech groups, I've muted like probably half of them, because it's not positive stuff. And then when the issue we brought up with the minis coming in and people being negative about it, that's where it hits home for me, where it's checking boxes of like, what am I doing? Because like, I want to promote positivity and get people into the art and the hobby, and then if there's negativity that's blurring in there too, I'm just like, I start to withdraw and check out, and that's not healthy for anybody. So
it's hard. It's with a critique, right? Is it Gordon Ramsay, the chef?
The one that is really mean to people.
Yeah. Okay.
The shit sandwich.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So he had an interesting quote, which I adopted, was, "Don't take it personally, take it professionally." Right, in regards to the hobby. Right, as a painter, take that professionally. Figure out what you can improve. But also, when you're giving feedback, try to make it constructive. And then when it comes to all these other political things and whatever the case may be, like, man, there's enough politics in this universe to go around for everybody. Like, a lot of people use this as an escape. And I know I do. And once it starts going down that road, I start shutting down personally. And I try not to, because I'm a very open, very outgoing person. But I'm like, man, that's not what I'm doing this for, right? I'm doing this, for the hobby and for artwork and to have a good time with guys. I don't want to get drawn into and get sucked into something like that. So just making it better for everybody and seeing it grow is really important. So, and I think you do a great job of that, right, on the website or on YouTube. instead of trying to tear people down.
Yeah. It's
So,
like build people up is always healthier.
yeah,
And like,
absolutely.
to give a good example of some of what Tsuge talking about, a little bit of the politics stuff is like, obviously recently you had what happened with Trump shooting and whatnot, which is horrible no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But it's like you couldn't escape that on social media. I don't need to see it in Battletech too, because like we almost just watched a portion of democracy take a hit, and regardless of the side of the aisle that you're on. If we want to still be a functioning democracy, it can't be acceptable to be assassinating our figures, right? Even if you don't disagree with them.
Either side of the fence.
Yeah, you need to be able to come to the table and have that debate. And if the debate turns into trying to silence permanently, then it's a problem. So when I go to approach Battletech, you have stuff like that that's going on. It's heavy. Depression, anxiety, making enough money. In my case, like still living at home. Like all these things that I'm just like, these things suck. I'm going to go paint these minis and paint Battletech. And then when I pop open my YouTube, or not YouTube, my Facebook feed, and I'm like, let me go find some cool posts. And then all of those things have been injected into those community posts, like, then my escapism's not escapism. So I don't know if it's just us that feel that way, but that's how I see it. And it's like, these terrible things happen all the time. For 2 hours tonight, I don't want to think about those while I paint my toys.
I'm with you, brother. I know exactly how you feel on that. Yeah. It's nice to take a break from reality. You know?
So last thing here, because I think we've hit a variety of topics and then some sensitive ones. We'll see if we get a bunch of negative comments here. Hopefully not. But it is what it is. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noted when you got here today, I thought was important to say, because it's good to tell people things. So you might think it, but if you don't tell them, they don't know. So like, if you see someone's artwork that's good and you think it, tell them. Because you never know, like when you'll be able to tell them again, or if they'll ever see it again, or how it's going to impact their day. Like they should know. Give them that compliment. But one of the things that I brought up was like, despite me being negative all the time, you guys don't see me on our private chat where I'm just like frustrated with things or like I got to vent. But you have a way of being like upbeat and positive, happy all the time. Your outlook, whatever it might be. And I noted that when I got here. In parting for the end here, like, how do you approach that? What do you do? Like, do you have any tips, tricks, or like, how do you get your brain to that point where like, you don't seem like a negative guy, and it's very easy for me to get into that hole.
I'm not usually. I mean, we all deal with struggles. Yeah. I would be lying to you, and I think can I preface it by saying that like, nobody's life is perfect.
Yep.
Right. And social media does a great job of showing you what someone wants you to see. Right. They give you the lens of man. Like, my life is perfect. No, my life is not perfect.
Yeah, you're not seeing what's on the other side of the camera.
Right, right. But a lot of that has to do with perspective.
Yeah.
Right. Is first of all, focusing on today. Yeah. What tomorrow is going to be tomorrow, and it's not worth worrying about because you can't deal with, or not deal with it, but you can't. There's nothing you can do to change tomorrow. Right. Yeah. You got to focus on today and what today gives you, and do the best with what you got in the moment. Yeah. Right. And we talked about, taking chances. Don't have any regrets. Yeah. Right. That's also why I have such a outlook, or whatever it is that I have is, don't have any regrets with your decisions. Right. You made a choice. If it's a wrong choice, do something else. Yeah. Change it. Right. Yeah. If your decision was wrong, switch it. Yeah. And then it'll be the right one. I can't tell you some of the worst things that have happened in my life are because I didn't make a choice. Yeah. Right. So making that choice, that helps. And then just, things are what they are, right? And tomorrow's a new day, and something else will happen tomorrow. Yeah. And move on from it. Don't dwell on mistakes. Yeah. Don't dwell on things that have happened in the past. Don't have regret, and that goes into taking opportunities, right? And doing stuff like that. And then also, for me, I'm religiously founded on certain beliefs as well. That we don't have to go into too much detail about, but my belief system, is, it grounds me in a lot of ways, and that kind of stuff. Not worrying, like I said, not worrying about tomorrow, knowing that things will be, taken care of. From my belief system, believing something greater than myself. Serving others, right? Not focusing on myself and being selfish. Living by the golden rule, all of those things, right? You find peace in those things, right? Because, people tend to be selfish and narcissistic and so investing in others. And that's part of creating a great community is pouring out yourself for other people, right? To make the world a better place, right? And when they see that in you, right? Hopefully, and at least from my perspective, they're not looking at me, but they're saying what about me is more than just me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They shouldn't be looking at me like they should be looking at what's driving me, right? And spiritually, for me, that's God. So,
Yeah.
you know, so that definitely helps frame my outlook on life. You know, like I said, is it perfect? You know, am I perfect? No,
Yeah.
of course not. You're never going to be.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same point in time, all things come to pass, right? And today may be bad and it may be tough, but tomorrow may be. You may have a bad game, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or one of your paint jobs may royally suck. But guess what?
You gotta paint another model.
You
gotta
paint
play
another one.
game. Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Do it tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? And keep moving on.
Yeah.
And try again. And you know, it does get better. You know, and yeah, I don't know. That's kind of in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you just said, stuff we also talked about, like putting good out in the world, planting seeds so it grows into something else. So all of those are topics that are serving other people and not just yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's if there was a theme for today's segment, series as it got towards the last third here, was like doing stuff for the betterment of the community, not yourself. And when you're doing things that are only for your enjoyment, when it's the group aspect, it starts to be toxic. Like if you're only painting for your enjoyment, sure, that's fine.
Right.
But like when you're playing games and doing that stuff, if it is to someone else's detriment and it's only for you, that's kind of a selfish view of it. But if you're doing something because it's fun for you and you're also promoting and growing the community and the other person having a good time is part of your focus, that you're growing, you're doing something, and it's not just about yourself. So
Exactly.
a lot of those topics transition over. Yep.
Absolutely. You get so much more joy of like, I do, from my perspective, when I see people post and send stuff to me. I get so much joy out of people like being excited in what they're doing, and they're submitting, and they're growing because they're painting their butts off every single day, and they're taking photos and they're editing, and like I love that, man. It like, because there's a piece of you in me from your YouTube, and hopefully there's a piece of me out there with others as well. And it just spreads all over the place. And it is, oh man, I love it. That's my favorite part of this, actually more so than the painting. The painting is an outlet, it's an avenue to that, right? Where the greater overarching theme of it is really like, you know, doing a service for the community and like bringing all these people that are all broken, myself included, and making it better in general for everyone. Not to get too emotional or too like.
No, I mean it's serious.
Too weird.
I mean, I don't think it's weird at all. I think you know, when it's almost like a legacy. It's like I don't have a huge channel, a huge reach, but I know these videos are here until YouTube is gone. So my thoughts are like, I've cast a light into the darkness, and if even one person comes through and they find something like this guy says something that makes me feel good, or I'm inspired to do a thing, or like I'm just happier having watched this, that's worth it. And then maybe that spreads, maybe that seed goes somewhere else because you're putting good into the universe. But as we close here, I think one of the things that would probably be a good idea with the CSO stuff that we talked about, if you want to share your art and so forth, I don't know if the policy for submission has changed yet or what the official thing's going to be. If you're interested in trying to get into CSO, obviously check the website. That'll give you the current guidance on how to get in. But more importantly, check out the CSO Discord, because I'm not sure what changes may or may not be coming. But the best way to stay up to date with that is in the Discord. People are actually posting, and then the artists, you get to see it. So you're going to get that immediate feedback and be part of a community who is definitely focused on the minis, and especially if any part of the topics resonated with you about like escapism and so forth. The CSO Discord is pretty focused on the paint stuff, so you're going to probably find that outlet there if you're not finding it elsewhere. So. Before we sign off, do you have anything else? Any other parting wisdom or things you want to tell people?
Yeah, man, please apply. If you're thinking about it, do it. Please apply. It's so nice to see all these different people getting engaged. And you may think that your art sucks, and I guarantee you it doesn't. Just apply, right? So it's like going out on the dance floor, man. You're not going to get out there and have a good time unless you actually take that step. So if you feel timid about it, like you know, and we're all reachable, honestly.
They're very approachable. To that topic, for submission, best piece of advice, 2 pieces. A, expect to get criticism, because that's what's going to happen. And B, if you're going to submit, I think the one piece of advice that from what I did that I like and not everyone does, type up some form of like a cover letter type thing. It doesn't have to be super official, but it adds some context to why you painted what you painted and gives us a little bit about you. So like, why are you painting? What do you like? What's your goals with this? So when I submitted, I did that. It's not required, but I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do this, this, and this. These are my missions. This is how I want to make an impact. And it may be slightly different for you, but the artists who are looking at your work may be like, oh, I see what they were doing. I see why they're doing these things. I see their inspiration. And it just gives us a little bit of context about you, and then be ready for the feedback, because that's what's going to happen. Artists are hopefully going to be giving you like bullet points, like here's some ideas for improvement. Here's what you did good. Or at least that's my philosophy. Yeah. Anyone that I've commented on that submitted, I usually, if I see something that I could use improvement, I'll be like, here's areas you're doing good on. Don't stop doing those. Here's areas you could use a little improvement on. Focus on those. We want to see you resubmit. But you're not going to get in or get any traction if you don't do it. So to call back to earlier in the video, you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah. So if you want to get in CSO, you have to apply to get in CSO. And if you don't, you won't. Right. So, yeah. But in closing, that's been fun. I've had a good time chatting with you. You guys should check out Tsuge on Instagram. Yep. Is it just Tsuge, your handle?
Tsuge Minis.
Tsuge Minis.
Underscore Minis.
Tsuge underscore Minis.
I'm not on Facebook. I'm not really on anything else. So
you'll find them there. And then we name dropped a variety of other CSO artists, but the main one I'll try and remember to get linked to Tsuge's, because he's actually in here. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, sound off in the comments below. If you disagree, that's okay too, but let's keep it civil. As per the conversation we had in this video. But hopefully not. I think that the messages we give come from the heart, and we just want to see the community be, growing and doing positive things. So
you're doing a great job, man. I mean,
thank you.
This is the right vibe to go with, for sure.
Well, we're definitely going to go now, because if we don't, we'll keep talking. We spent like 3 hours before we started. So as always, Wargamers, thank you for hanging out. Keep rolling your dice, keep painting your models, and we will catch you guys next time. If you made it this far, you're probably a viewer that already hits that like button when you see a video come up. You're probably already a subscriber, and you probably jump into the comments down below to help support the channel, to help support that algorithm. But if you're looking for some other ways to help support the channel too, make sure you check the description down below. Maybe you want to pick up some paints from Monument Hobbies. That's my paint of choice. The Pro Acrylic line is chef's kiss, good stuff. Maybe you want to check out some of the offerings from Death Row Designs, where I work in my day job. We got plenty of 3D printed products, as well as MDF terrain, some of the stuff that I have designed myself and we play with here on the channel. And if you're looking to bolster your Battletech ranks, miniatures, and offerings, make sure you check out Bobby from Fortress Miniatures and Games. He's one of the main supporters of the channel as well, and supporting any of these companies helps support what I do and helps to ensure that I can continue to bring content to all of you. If you want to become a super supporter, I highly recommend you guys check out the Patreon. You guys give that extra little edge to help push more content out, and I really do appreciate that. And my ultimate goal on the channel is to continue to be able to not only put out the content we have now, but to get to a point where you can put out more content later, whether that be battle reports or painting tutorials or just more rambles, anything at all. I'd like to be doing more content for you. This is something that I enjoy. I like being able to cast a light into the darkness to bring a little bit of hobby positivity to all of you and make you feel good, and also enjoy playing games myself. As we do the final sign off here though, I do want to go ahead and switch on over and do the scroll of awesome to showcase all the Patreon supporters, the super supporters of the channel, to give them some recognition for helping support what I do. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you guys next time.